Okay, so in this lecture we will start with the part 3, and these all are methods of calculation, that is linear discriminant analysis, logistic regression model, cluster analysis, principal component analysis, and cash flow simulation. So first of all I want to tell you something, that we don't have any kind of calculation for all these methods. Okay, we have just and just theory for these methods, like what is this method, what are its limitations, what are their advantages, some comparison in between them, or some basic logical thoughtful information are given, but no methods, like I cannot show you like how we calculate the probability or default probability using these models. Okay, so we have to somewhere compromise that we don't have the methods of calculation, because see, all these methods are very long and cannot be practically given in the examination. Means until unless you have a particular model set up in your exam, you can't answer this question. But yes, there can be few MCQ that can be created based on the logics, like how they work. Okay, so everything related to the logic, everything related to the method, I will try to explain you. But yes, when it comes to the number crunching part, it is quite difficult for you as well as for the me, that without having that number crunching part, like without having those models, I can show you. Okay, so I will try my best that all these methods will be like in your mind with the 100% of conceptually cleared thoughtful process. Okay. Okay, first of all I request you to note down this what I have written, so that it will be easy for you to understand. Just pause the video and just note it down. Okay, I am starting now. Linear discriminant analysis, this is our first method, and this is a reduced form model. We have two type of model, if you remember. One is the reduced and another is the structural. So linear discriminant analysis is the part of reduced form model. Martin model is a structure model, and linear discriminant analysis is a reduced form model. Next, this is a statistical tool. This is also very important, that this is a statistical tool. Now, why we are considering this model as a reduced form model? The reason is that the variables which we are concerned with in the model are the external variables. Okay, now the question is here that how you choose these variables. So we choose variables based on how much they are contributing towards the likelihood of default. Means what we want to find out, we want to find out that how much that Reliance Industry will default. Okay, and what are the variables which are explaining that the Reliance Industry will default. Like this is explaining too much, 2%, this is explaining 5%, this is explaining 7%, this is explaining 1.3%. so there are many variables which are explaining that Reliance Industry will default. So we will choose these variable based on the how much contribution towards the likelihood of default. Clear? There will be many variables, and out of those variables we will choose few variables. Okay, and we will assign weights to each variable. Clear? Now, few important points regarding the linear discriminant analysis. One is that it's a scoring model, means somewhere we assign the score. If we are above this, we are good. If we are below this, we are bad. So everyone have their own score, and on the basis of score we produce a judgment. Clear? Next, this linear discriminant analysis is means this statistical tool, it developed from the qualitative and quantitative empirical data. Means what are the data we have, from all those data we have prepared, we have created this statistical tool, and these tools have the appropriate parameters as well as the variables, and these parameters and variables will help us to predict the default. So how this statistical tool developed? It is developed from the qualitative and quantitative empirical data which are available with us, and then we have determined the appropriate parameters and variables so that we can predict the default. Clear? So we have developed the appropriate parameters and variables. Clear? And next, as the name suggests that this is a linear function, so we say that this is a linear function of the of all the variables. Clear? Linear function and non-linear. So this is among those function which is completely a linear function. Okay. Now the word is the discriminant analysis. There are many methods, many discriminant analysis method, but in this reading, when we are doing this reading, it is concerned only with the one method, that is the ordinary least square method. See, when you are talking about the discriminant, means what? Means you want to find out something between the two. Say this is a solvent form and this is the insolvent form. Okay, so you want to distinguish them. Okay, you want to discriminate between them. You want to find out the difference between these two. Okay, for that there are many methods, but what we are concerned with? We are concerned with ordinary least square method. So in the point number 5 you can write it down, ordinary least square method. Now how we are assigning a score? It is told by a small model, that is the Altman Z score. Okay, Altman's Z score. Now see, we have basically two groups. One is the solvent form and one is insolvent. Means we need to predict which form is solvent and which form is insolvent in the future. Okay, means we can say that on the day of payment, which firm will remain insolvent and which firm will be solvent. Okay, so we need to find out that which firm is going to be insolvent prior to default. So what we do, there are 5 firms. Suppose there are Infosys, there is Reliance, there is TCS, there is ITC, as well as there is HDFC Bank. So what we'll do, we will assign a particular score to them. Okay, Z score says that if it's lower than 2.675, then our firm will be insolvent. Means if your Z score, what is the threshold? The threshold is 2.675. If it's lower, then you are insolvent, and if it's higher than 2.675, then your firm will remain solvent. Clear? So this is an important threshold as given by the Z score, also known as Z score cutoff. Now one of the most important thing that we should write down, that Z score incorporate both the financial and the non-financial information. Write down in point number 1 under the Altman Z score that it include both the financial and non-financial information. Clear? There might be the chances that both the firm will have the same Z score, but at the end HDFC Bank defaulted. It can happen because no one is sure what will happen in the future, but given the present scenario, both have the same Z score, but HDFC Bank defaulted. Clear? So there can be sometimes the incorrect classification as well. Now Altman in 1968 presented this linear equation. Okay, as you can see, this is a linear equation. Nowhere you will see any kind of square. So see, these x1, x2, x3, they all are x4, x5, they all are the variables, and these are the weights assigned to each variable. Clear? Now see, I have said that which variable to include, that completely dependent upon the contribution. And how you will see the contribution? This 1.21 is the contribution of this variable. Clear? Got the idea? And what are these x1, x2? These are nothing but our accounting ratio. So see, it is not required that you should learn, but what I prefer that you should learn this small equation, because you will be more confident. That's all. If you want to be very confident, right, so you need to remember it. It's okay if you don't, but I prefer that you will remember this equation, okay, along with the assigned weights, because somewhere if they can ask that what is x1, then you need to answer them. So write down what is x1. x1 is working capital by total assets. x1 is working capital by total assets. X2, it is accrued capital reserve by total assets. Accrued capital reserves by total assets. Next, X3, EBIT by total assets. EBIT by total assets. X4, your equity divided by face value. Now equity market value, okay, equity market value and face value of term debt, face value of term debt. And the last one is sales by total assets. Clear? So out of the 5, in the 4 you will find that the denominator is total assets. First one is working capital, second one is accrued capital reserve, third one is EBIT, fourth one is equity by debt, fifth one is sales by total assets. If you can try, obviously you can remember it. I know these figures are difficult to remember, but still if you have some approx idea, it will be a good. When you are talking about the EBIT by total asset, you can say it's the highest, okay. When it comes to the sales by total asset, it approx to 1. When I say equity by face value, it approx to 0.5. When I say accrued capital reserve, you can say it's approx 1.5. When I say working capital by total asset, you can say it's approx 1.25. Clear? So it's approx 1.25, it's approx 1.5, this approx 3.5, this approx 0.5, and this approx 1. So on the approximation basis, now you can remember that it will be 21, it will be 40, it will be 30. See, 21, 40, 30, 0.6, and it's close to 1, that you can easily remember because it's MCQ, you don't have to write the numbers. Clear? So this is all about the Z score. Clear? So this Altman Z score is basically an example or the way we have where we have used the LDA. There is another example where we have used the LDA, that is risk Kelsey model, basically risk calibration model. Okay. So risk Kelsey model, write down the first point, that it is developed by Moody's. Point number 2, it incorporates several areas. Write down, it incorporates several areas such as financial leverage, growth, liquidity, financial leverage, growth, liquidity, debt coverage, profitability, size and asset. Clear? Such as financial leverage, growth, liquidity, debt coverage, profitability, size and assets. Third point, that this model is basically tailored for different countries in different manner, because many countries will have higher liquidity, many countries will have lower liquidity, many countries company will follow with the higher leverage, some country will follow with the low leverage, larger company size, might be higher growth, might be lower growth. So it is basically tailored for country. Okay. Now let's come back to LDA again. Now understand that with the LDA, what's our approach? Okay, if I will come to Z score, this is my Z score. Okay, in the Z score, see, there are these part are completely getting from the balance sheet of the company. Now there are few things, this weights, we can change this weights. Okay, why we can change this weights? These are basically the coefficient to my variables, so I change this weight so that I can optimize my LDA. Why I have to optimize? Because see, there are two firms, firm A, firm B, having the Z score of 3 and 3, means their Z score are same. We will say that both of them will not be insolvent. Okay, but at the end I have seen that A is insolvent. So now see, if A is solvent, as per the Z score, B should also be insolvent. If A is insolvent, then B should also be insolvent, but it is not the case. Means what? In the beginning we have an overlapping zone, means where A and B, they both have the same Z score, but at the end they are unclassified properly. Okay, so what we have to do, we have to optimize our Z score, and in order to optimize, we need to optimize the coefficient of our variables. Clear? If we'll see the historical version of LDA, means what LDA earlier would have been, it have three zones basically. Okay, these three zones, what it would be, very safe borrower, means if you are giving the amount to them, it's completely safe. If you are giving the loan to them, it's very risky, and those who are in the middle of the borrower, they will be investigated further whether they are safe or not safe. Means they are safe, definitely safe, they are definitely safe, and they are definitely risky. But in this scenario, it is mandatory to investigate them and to classify as whether safe or unsafe. This was the traditional method of LDA. But if you will see our current and the modern LDA, it has the two major objective. One, write down, is to measure default probability. One, to measure default probability, and the second one is to assign rating. Okay, these are the two main objective of LDA in the current scenario. Now see, your statistical model is created. This is your statistical model, and this is your empirical data. What is this empirical data means? Means the data and the information which you have collected through observations and experiments. Now you want to fit your empirical data into the statistical model, and this process is known as calibration. Important. What is calibration? When you want to fit your empirical data into your statistical model, this is known as calibration. Clear? Now this model will provide you the default probability and the rating. Now one more thing it this model account for is that this is your sample data. Okay, and this is your whole population data. So if there is difference between this sample and population data, so that will be accounted by this model as well. Now see what is happening here. A client Ram went to HDFC Bank and he asked for the loan of 10,000 rupees, $10,000. He asked for the loan of $10,000. Now it's up to HDFC Bank whether to accept the application of Ram or to reject the application of Ram. Now what bank will do? Bank will have a model. Bank will calculate the Z score. What bank will do? They will calculate the Z score of the Ram and see whether it is above the Z score, means above the cutoff, or below the cutoff. If below the cutoff, they will reject. But there is one more thing that is very important that the bank will recognize is the difference between the sample, means this 2.675, the cutoff, okay, and what is the real data of the population. They need to adjust between these two, sample and the population, means they have to adjust their cutoff. Suppose I am just giving an example that the Z score for the Ram came as 2.50, so it is below the cutoff, but they have seen that there is some difference between the sample and population, so they have adjusted their cutoff to 2.35. So when my cutoff adjusted, Ram will get the loan, his application will be accepted. So even when you are using the LDA method, we have to see that whether this cutoff is applicable in my case or not, whether my sample and my population are matching with the given cutoff or not. Now one of the major concern which we usually face is that our actual defaults are infrequent, means they don't happen so casually, they are completely infrequent, as well as the data we predicted and the actual data, there is also some difference. Okay, so obviously we need to create some accurate model, and that accurate model that can only be created when we will use some samples, okay, and that samples will create equal number of firms which are performing good and equal number of firms which are defaulted. Such kind of models which we are suggesting that our sample should be relatively equal, means our sample should contain the equal number of good performing firms and the defaulting firms. However, the risk of equaling the sample group size is that model applied to the real population will tend to overpredict. But there is one problem that if I have included suppose 50 good firms and 50 defaulted firm, what will happen? Then I am overestimating my default, because see, on an average if I have taken the 100 samples, out of that only 2 to 3% firm will default as per the real data, actual data. So what we are doing, we are overestimating the default part. So in order to overcome this risk that we are overestimating the default, what we can do, we can calibrate our sample size. Okay, got the idea? And the thing is that we want to classify the data into two parts. One is non-defaulting and the other one is defaulting. So we can use Bayes theorem, because it has only two options, whether it's yes or no. Clear? In the same way, whether your firm will default or your firm will not default. So what we can do, we can adjust using the Bayes theorem. Clear? So what we can do, with the help of Bayes theorem, we can equate the frequency of default firm by our total, or we can say actual population, means out of the actual population how many firms are defaulting. So now we have two data. One is the probability of default of insolvent and the probability of default of solvent. Clear? From here we will get the probability of default, and from the other no default by total population we will get the probability of solvent. Clear? So these are insolvent, these are solvent. We will get the probability for insolvent and solvent. Now see, if out of 100 we have 50 default and we have 50 solvent, then our probability is 0.5, 0.5. Clear? So in case our probability is same, then what should be the adjustment? If we will say about the adjustment, because these all are we are doing for the adjustment, if you remember that we need to adjust the Z cutoff score using the Bayes theorem, and using the Bayes theorem we have got the probability of solvent and insolvent. Now what should be the adjustment amount? If we will use the formula that probability of solvent by probability of insolvent. If in case we have the same sample size, okay, our sample size is balanced, means equal amount of default and equal amount of solvent. So there is no need to adjust. Why? Because if we will put the data of ln 0.5 by 0.5, our value will be 0, means we don't have to adjust anything to our Z probe. Clear? But if our population and if our data is unbalanced, then we need to adjust our original cutoff. Now how we can adjust? Now see, the cutoff point which we are using is 1.25. This is the cutoff point, this is our cutoff point. Okay, if we have used the balanced data where our probability of solvent and probability of insolvent will be 0.5 and 0.5, then our cutoff point will remain as 1.25. But if there are situations where our probability of solvent and insolvent are not same, so we need to balance the data. Now how we can do so? See, over the last 20 year, I am taking an example that over the last 20 year my default rate, means my default, that is probability of insolvent, okay, my probability of insolvent is 3.75%. Clear? And the probability of solvent will be 96.25%. Now we need to find out the adjustment value. What it will be? It will be ln of 96.25 divided by 3.75. Both are in percentage, and when we will solve this, we will get 3.25, means this is the adjustment factor which we need to add to our cutoff point. So it will be 1.25 plus 3.25, that is 4.50. This is our new cutoff point. Clear? Now suppose when we are not adjusting, there can be the risk of misclassification. Means what? There can be two type of borrower. One is risky borrower and one is safe borrower. What will happen in case of safe borrower? If our z-score estimates is wrong, then what will happen? We will reject them and we will lose our business, we will lose the opportunity to earn. And in case of risky borrower, we will pay the amount. What will be our cost? We will get a loss because of the default. Clear? So in case of risky, we are having the loss of default, and in case of safe, we are having the loss of interest income. So we can see that our loss is not equal, means here it's a very huge amount and here it's just a small amount. So we need to adjust our factor in a different manner. Okay, what will be the way in which we can adjust? Means we need to calculate again a new adjustment factor. This is the first way, this is the first method, and now because this have some few problems that we are not involving the cost, now we are improving our method and we are including the factor of cost. So it will be probability of solvent by probability of insolvent as before, but one thing we are including is the cost. Clear? We are including this additional factor of cost. In the first case, we are losing our solvent party, so we are losing the interest income and getting the insolvent. So what is our cost? It is solvent by insolvent. But in case of second part, we are getting the insolvent and leaving the solvent part. So what is our cost? Our cost is insolvent by solvent, and that we need to include in our calculation. So the first one is basically the opportunity cost, means we have the opportunity to earn a good income, but we are unable to get it because we have left a solvent party because of our wrong z-score. So we have an opportunity cost. But in case of second part, it is a loss given default, means it's an insolvent party which I have accepted, so I have a loss given default. Means in case of loss will happen, default will happen, what will be my loss? Now keeping the previous example as it is, our opportunity cost is given as 20% and our loss given default is given as 50%. Clear? So what was my previous part? It is 96.25 by 3.75. So it will be ln 96.25% by 3.75% into 20% divided by 50%, and after calculation we got the point as 2.33. Now I will add this with 1.25 because this was my earlier z-score. Now I need this adjustment. So now what will be the answer? 1.25 plus 2.33, it will be 3.58. So this will be my next cutoff point. So in the LDA we have only two ways, means either you can accept or you can reject, but you cannot incorporate other sensitive factors such as the portfolio profile, market risk environment, market trend, funding cost, past performance. So all these things are missing when we are talking about the LDA. Clear? But in our modern internal rating system, we have the concept which are based on default probability, and they require more options, they require more variables, more inputs. On that basis we will define some output whether we should accept or reject, but we need to add more and more option into it. Clear? So here is the end of LDA part. Let's take one small question and then we will end this lecture. We need to calculate the Z cutoff point, and the initial Z cutoff point is given as 1 and the default rate is given as 2.75%. Next, opportunity cost is given as 15%, and we have loss given default is given as 45%. So we need to calculate our new value. So how it will be? ln 100 minus 2.75, how much? That is 97.25 is the percentage for solvent, divided by 2.75 into opportunity cost 15% by loss given default 15%, and whatever the amount will come, we will have to add 1 into that, and that will be our answer. Okay, so I end this lecture here. Thank you.